So are you really asking how in the world did that book get released with that narrator? Like, who decided that that was going to happen when it's clearly so terrible?
Yes, like, or I'll give you a good example. So, for some strange reason, I remember hearing Lord of the Rings, Robert English on YouTube. And from what I remember, Robert English sounded great. But then for some strange reason, when I go on audible.com, he's narrating at a slower speed. His voice doesn't seem to even coordinate what the characters are supposed to sound like.
So it
And
is the
and
same narrator, though.
yes,
Okay.
and I remember. Sorry,
No, go
but
ahead.
that's and sometimes the voices sound the same.
So, some of this is the way that audiobooks are done these days. And some of this may be that if there was a producer there, when there are a number of projects I've done where I think they should go in one direction. And the producer who's directing me on how they want it to sound thinks it should go in another direction. And I don't get to choose. I'm the voice. I don't get to choose in that situation. It's one of the first things I learned as a voice actor, that ultimately, if a producer is there, that the voice actor is not responsible for the final product.
But is it
That's the
common that it
producer's
gets?
job.
But is it common that it gets read multiple times? Because he's saying
Yes.
by the same.
Yeah, it's a little bit like audio description, right? Like some things are described in the United States and then they're not described in other countries, or they're described in the UK, but they're not here in the US. There are licensing issues and things like that.
Okay.
Okay.
There are
Yep.
different editions that come out. And so somebody wants one. Yes, there is reinventing the wheel that absolutely happens. From an audiobook perspective, too, there is a lot of do it yourself. For anybody who's interested in voiceover, audiobooks are an amazing way to get into it, because you can do it without paying out any money up front to an online casting site. But all those, there's so many audiobooks that are cast online, because any Joe Schmo who publishes a book through Kindle can put that book up on Audible. And it's a platform called acx.com, the Audio Book Creation Exchange, acx.com. You can go make a free profile. You can start putting up, you can use your auditions for audiobooks as your sample material. And people can find you and book you. And it's either they pay you a per finished hour rate. So if the book is 2 hours, you're not being paid for the 8 hours it takes you to produce it. You're paid for the 2 hours that it's finished, right? So remember that when you're doing your rates. Or they pay via royalty share, which is when the book is sold, you get 20% of the proceeds, the author gets 20%, and then Audible gets 60%. If you have a book, though, that's selling well, I mean, I've done a couple of royalty share books where I've made thousands. And the beautiful thing about royalty share work is that it's passive income. It's book sells month after month. You just get a direct deposit into your account. The problem with this thing, though, is that there's a lot of work that's done through acx.com, since anybody can get up there and pop up a free profile and that kind of thing. Anybody can be a narrator. And so, yes, you get a lot of people that maybe shouldn't be doing it.
Or even the variables are like, let's say and of course, I'm pretty sure this has happened to you, or maybe this is a wrong assumption. But let's say I hear a narrator that sounds awesome on one, but then sounds completely trash on the other. So that's the other.
Yeah, and I think I think there's also too, like, I mean, if you're working through a production house, you're recording, and then somebody else gets to edit it and clean it up and post it via Audible's guidelines.
Mhm.
If you're doing it yourself, you have to do all of that yourself. So depending upon what mic is used, what equipment is used, how proficient the people are who are putting it together, you can have, I mean, even just the quality of the audio can be better between one book and another, I find. And casting, it can be a hard thing. And like I said, I mean, I've had projects where I've done them and I think it should go one way and they think it should go another. And the final comes out and you're like, good grief, man, this was such a great script. Who decided to make the final sound like that? I have the raw files and I'm telling you that when I did this, it sounded better and I have a take that sounded great, but that's not the one they chose. So I always want to give the benefit of the doubt to the voice actor because it is not always your choice.